Awesome. All right. I got the thumbs up, so we're live. I mean, we're just going to go ahead and get started because I am like itching to talk to you today about the work that you're doing. So I'm super, super thrilled. But thank you all for joining us. My name is Claire Hozalski. I'm SAI's Chief Operating Officer. And for those who might be less familiar with SAI, we are an incubator that really enables scholars and social entrepreneurs to build this really great generation of programs and tools in STEAM engagement, science communication, and informal science learning. Ultimately, we really work to accelerate the pathways between science and society. And before we get started with today's session, I want us all to take a moment quick and acknowledge that we live, work, and learn on the traditional lands of many tribes and Indigenous peoples. And as we continue to gather virtually from across the country and internationally, we encourage you to learn more about the communities who continue to steward the land you inhabit and seek ways to honor and cultivate meaningful relationships. And it's really great to be here today and to see so many of you chat and come to chat with Martina, who is Science News's 2021 Civic Science Fellow, about how she shares and uses civic science and journalism to reach Gen Z audiences. Being in the world of science communication myself, it has been interesting to watch Gen Z change the way in which we as a society communicate. And I find myself constantly looking to people like Martina to find ways to effectively engage this particular audience. Martina's work helps to understand and better engage with young people through science journalism, particularly those historically underrepresented in science, including people of color and those from low-income urban and rural areas. Martina is a toxicologist by training, science communicator, and STEM education advocate. She earned her master's degree in toxicology from St. John's University and her bachelor's from Penn State University. There's a little Big Ten rivalry between us as I'm from UW-Madison's, but we'll let that slide. Previously, her work included spending time with the University of Maryland's CURE Scholars Program as a college and career readiness coordinator, STEM Expo Manager, and program assistant. She's also a science writer and occasionally writes for American Society for Biochemistry and Molecular Biology, and has written for numerous scientific societies that I won't even begin to dive into. But also was something super cool as I was going across your bio is that you have your own STEM digital platform, Mademoiselle Scientist. So definitely everybody check that out. Martina, thank you so much for coming today, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you all for having me. This is like a full circle experience because I met Fanuel in 2018 at the Cultivating Ensembles Conference in New York City. Let me share my screen. Okay. So again, thank you again. So my project is about, science journalism to engage younger audiences in science. And basically, I want to talk about the connection between civic science and journalism to reach Gen Z. So my story. So I started my career like really curious and interested in science and wanting to know more about the world around me. So I did my research in my master's program, and then I was like, hey, I want to do more. So I decided to do science communication. And from there, my science writing career was born. After, writing a lot and doing more, I was like, okay, I'm doing a lot of different outreach. So I was like, okay, hey, my work is STEM education advocacy. So if you look on the slide, you will see a picture on the left. That is little young me right here when I was 17 years old. And I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a scientist. I'm gonna change the world. I'm gonna make an impact. And then you see to the right, you see a civic science pillar. And the ones that really relate to me is communicating for the future, diversity, equity, and inclusion of science. And then now you see these beautiful magazines here. So this is Science News, which I am a fellow a part of. So Science News is a science news magazine that was started by Scripps and Ritter as a way to publish non-biased science. You will find topics on climate, health, chemistry, technology, biology, so many things. And also we have a sister publication called Science News Explorers, where we have information for younger audiences. So I think it was Peter, he had his 2 kids on there, so they can check out Science News Explorers. So what do I do as a fellow? Like I said before, my work focuses on science journalism to engage younger audiences in science, because the key to me is younger audiences. And I define younger audiences as those who are 11 to 17, a part of the Gen Z age group. And this is really important to me because as teens of today, they are the experts of teens of today. Teens' voice matters so much. We need to know what they need. We need to know what they want, because like I said before, audience really matters. Because, I was a teen before, but I'm not a teen of today. So to reach this audience, I have to talk to teens of today. So they're going to help me design a news media product. And I define it as social media like TikTok, Instagram, a visual aid like a post or written form or video. So here on this slide, you see a little bit of work that I've been doing. So I have my new website called thenextscientist.com. So that was an extension of Mademoiselle Scientist, where I support the next generation of scientists and make science accessible to everyone. Recently, I was selected to do a Neiman Lab prediction for journalism, where I talked about how we need to listen to our audience because Gen Z are the experts of Gen Z. I talked about how audience matters, curiosity matters to our audiences, and we need to know what sparks their curiosity. Also, you see that I talked about, we need more Black girl STEM magic on our screen, because when I grew up, I did not see people that look like me in science. I did not see Black girls in science, and I wanted to change that. Also, you see below my TikTok, and I just share basically visibility and representation of what science is. So as you can see, a theme for me is audience really matters. So how do I do this work? So a big part of my work is product thinking. I did a product thinking analysis with my group, which was a SWOT analysis and an audience landscape analysis to see what our competitors are doing. I wanted to identify gaps. So I also did outreach to organizations who have teens ages 11 to 17, because I wanted to know what they actually wanted and needed. Also, I did a toolkit to engage younger audiences in science and had several focus groups. So again, audience really matters. If I want to reach younger audiences, I have to speak like younger audiences. So that meant going to TikTok. So I made a recruitment style video on TikTok, and I had several focus groups. I had 8 focus groups with 44 teens. And then I was able to talk to a diverse group of teens about what they needed and what they wanted. So I know you're like, what were the focus group results? So I was able to find out these 5 themes. 1, diversity, equity, inclusion was so important to them. They want identity. They want languages. They want cultural backgrounds. Another thing, number 2, was marketing is an investment that we should really take. They wanted to see science news on billboards. They wanted to see teens doing cool things. They wanted fun, cool science. And they also wanted series. And then social media. Social media like YouTube, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter, and even a newsletter, which I was surprised. Also, they wanted reliable sources. They wanted to be like, okay, can I get it from my parent or my guardian? But they also got their stuff from teachers, Encyclopedia, and Washington Post. But then lastly, of course, it goes back to curiosity of science. So after I had those 5 themes, I was digging deeper and I was like, okay, so here are the themes, like where do you want your science to be and what topics? So I got like biology, genetics and animals, also space and astronomy, chemistry, of course, agriculture, botany and food production.
I should not have to tell you every time to not.
Environmental science, technology, and engineering, information technology, and computer science. So throughout my fellowship, I did a lot of different collaborations. I talked to other people in my network. I work with another fellow, Eric, on the focus groups. I also work with Jelana on storytelling. I also work with Michelle, a colleague at Science News, Janet, and Maria on student advisory board and STEM literacy, and I hope to collaborate more. Also work with the CSO group, a charter school, Club Sherry, and among other groups. So what's next? I have to do more focus groups. I have to develop a product, and I have to share it in a video and in written form, and then also develop that product and beta test. Also, I'm looking to market and produce high quality videos that serve STEM education for younger audiences. So I learned a lot in this fellowship. I learned that, I have to talk to people like here. I have to think about my values, my skills, and my interests. That's important to me. I have to think about the audience all the time. I have to say, if I can't find it, create it. I have to find mentors and co-design. And I have to think like a civic scientist and a science journalist. So here, if you want to learn more about science news or explorers, here are the QR codes. And I can leave it on the screen for a little bit. Okay. And then if you want to know about me, I have my QR codes, my TikTok, and all the socials that I'm on, as well as my email addresses. And I wanted to keep it short and sweet so you have room for questions. But that's all I have. And thank you all so much.
Awesome. So Martina stuck to the script of keeping it short so we can really dig in and ask lots of questions. And so please, the floor is open. Martina, I'll start you off by just, if you can take us back, like why did you apply for this fellowship? Just walk us through that thinking when you took on this project.
So I found out about it on Twitter. And I was like, I really want to do something that intersects like all my interests, like science, communication, and education. And I randomly saw it and I was like, can I apply? And I was like, okay, why not? So then I applied and then I had an interview and then I got it because I was like, it's really, really cool. And thinking about my journey, I basically did civic science like my whole career, but I didn't know that was what it was called.
Yeah. And how would you define civic science?
To me, like civic science is about like co-design and co-creation and listening to your audience.
Great. Okay, I have too many questions. I'm going to shut up now and the people jump in. And if they don't jump in, I'll keep jumping in. The floor is open, everybody. And there's lots to digest in there, by the way.
So I'm just curious. I mean, you kind of gave us those overarching like things you've learned, and this is very fresh in my mind. I was just in a middle school classroom like 2 hours ago, and this particular lesson fell flatter than most. And I'm like, what things are working to like get them, especially like in a face-to-face, like a lot of what you were talking about was kind of marketing and like videos that they can interact with. Like in a face-to-face interaction, did they talk about what works for them?
They talked about like they really want like social media. And they really want engagement. Like social media was like off the charts. They were like social media. I was like, okay, I'm listening.
And to piggyback off that, when Pete is at, can you share the types of questions you were asking them?
Yeah, so basically I asked them like, where do you get your science? Where do you get your news? Where do you get your information? Like, what are your daily news habits? Like, what do you do when you get up in the morning? Like they say, oh, I check my phone, I check my social media, I check my text messages, stuff like that. And then I asked them also about like their favorite science topics.
Okay. And then how do I frame this? How old are they? Like, how old is this group specifically?
11 and 17. So
Okay.
middle school and high school. And then I separated them for like middle school right here and then high school right here.
Yeah. Okay. Pete, I feel like you have another question there.
And also I had like all girl groups too in co-ed.
Yeah. So what you're saying to me is like, maybe our efforts are in the wrong place because we're doing in-person stuff, right? Like we're trying to go in there, and there's actually a conversation we were having with some of them or some of my colleagues who were also there. It's like, it's not cool to ask questions in front of all your friends because like,
Yeah.
It's 8th grade, and like being a science person is not like the coolest thing in the world to be in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So like we struggle. One of the things we do almost every session is like, do you guys have any questions for our med students who are right here? And they can tell you about what it's like to go to med school and anything. And they're just like, nope, not going to engage with you. So it's really interesting. It's something to process for sure right now.
And the big question I asked at the icebreaker was, how do you feel about science? And I had like an emoji scale. So that was able to open up the dialogue.
Yeah. I'm curious, in your landscape, were you able to show, or I don't know if someone has done this, like where are they getting most of their news from? Like
they getting it from like I don't have like a graph, but they said like from teachers and school, but they couldn't really think of like a place. Like they didn't say, oh, this is the place. It was like people, which like, I was like, what? No places, just people.
Because I'm curious, Pete, like you're saying you're in the classroom, because where are they getting it from? Because that's where, if you're seeing a gap, right, where they're getting it from here, but they want it over here, then there's an opportunity, right, to design something and be strategic. So.
Well, and with that thought in mind, it's like, well, maybe we can be those news people, right? Like, so maybe we are those people that they're getting that information from, even if they're not gonna, super engage with it. And this has always been our hope, right? That, even if you're not gonna show that enthusiasm with your peers around, hopefully you're going home and being like, hey, we learned like when you stick your hand in this bag and I can tell you what's in there without even seeing it, it's because of these receptors on my fingers and stuff. Like, it's super cool. And they can hopefully go tell their parents or, somebody about it.
Claire.
Hey, so this is all super interesting. And something I keep going back to and thinking about is this generation, or these students and these kids basically grew up online.
Yep. Digital natives.
Yeah. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, okay, as somebody who's been traditionally in the sense of you do a lot of engagement face-to-face, this online engagement might be kind of where it's at, especially for this particular audience in itself. And so I'm wondering, like, do you have any insights when it comes to engaging with them online, or some trends that you might have seen in particular that kind of boost their confidence, as well as can get us as communicators, as a scientist, the goals that we're seeking?
Let me see. They want like representation, like people that look like them, like teens, like girls, people of color. They was adamant about that. They was like, they wanted in really a lot of languages like Spanish and Portuguese, American Sign Language. So they really want this diversity piece like a lot, like through and through. And then also like making it accessible online to them at all times. That's like what they really wanted.
That's awesome.
At all times.
Yeah. Like all times.
Where did you collect this information? Like what were like city or populate, like what population were you collecting?
It was like US based students, and everybody was just like everywhere.
Okay.
Like I had like people that were Black, Middle Eastern, Asian, multicultural, white.
Super cool. Also, I love the fact that you did a scale of emojis. That is like,
Yeah.
that is just peak for me. I'm so excited over that.
Yeah.
Were any of these students potentially interested in becoming communicators themselves? Because coming from like the book publishing world, middle schoolers want to read about high schoolers. High schoolers want to read about young adults. And
Yeah.
I'm just gonna put myself out there. I've aged out already of being maybe somebody who these students want to watch on social media. So would it be possible to empower some of these older students to actually be communicators for these younger students?
I think so, but nobody really said they wanted to do that. Only one girl said she wanted to be like in journalism and science. Only one person out of everybody.
Which is interesting. Jenny, I don't know if Jenny is able to join, because Jenny, her initiative is actually training young people to be journalists. Ooh. And Jenny, I don't want to speak for you. What are your insights, especially from what Martina just said?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think I can speak perhaps a little bit to Peter's question too. What I've found with my initiative is that kids are super eager to have conversations with scientists. So Martina, I don't know if you would know of my program. It's called Science Storytellers, and I've been running it for a few years at the AAAS annual meeting, and it's a booth event where instead of the traditional kind of booth where you have a table and you're behind the table talking to people, I kind of make my booth into a little bit of a cafe setting with chairs paired together side by side, and kids and scientists get paired up to have scaffolded conversations modeled around a journalistic interview, basically. And that's really there for two purposes. One of them is just to give some scaffolding for a conversation to take place that a kid can lead, and also to expose kids and the parents who come along with them to what journalism is really all about and how that works. And in this format, I think what's a little different than going into a classroom is that it's a paired situation. So it's a kid and a scientist and a kid and a scientist. So I think that right there breaks down some of that hesitation or embarrassment about speaking up in front of their peers, because none of their peers can hear what their conversations are all about. And afterwards, you often would hear them talking with their parents, and sort of teaching them about what they learned in that conversation. So that idea about whether older, high school kids could become the communicators to younger kids, I think, did you mention that, Faniel, or Martina, did that come out of your talk?
Caroline.
Oh, Caroline, was that you? I'm sorry. I think that could be a really interesting thing to explore, possibly even going back to some of the kids that you have already interviewed for your own research and maybe explore that a little more. That might be really interesting to see, like if kids in the older age group could take on that role, or even vice versa. Like, could you get younger kids to teach older kids about what they learned in some facilitated conversation with scientists?
In my other work, I found that like teens like near peer mentorship. So as long as you look like you in that age group, they want you.
Exactly. Yeah, and in the program I do, I try to find younger scientists, so graduate students, postdocs. We definitely have senior scientists as well, but I think kids often were surprised to see, like, oh, these scientists do look like me. They're not that much older than I am. And yeah. That's great that you were working with the team at Science News also. I've worked with Janet for years on the editorial side of things.
Hey, Janet is awesome.
Oh, she's the best. I love her.
Yeah, so Martina, I'm curious, for your focus groups, did you record these conversations? Like, what kind of you showed us that visual. I'm curious if you have
Mhm.
any more quantitative data you are able to share, or you did not. I'm just curious.
Oh, not at the moment. Also, I recorded them on Zoom, and
Mhm.
all the teams received $25 gift card
Okay.
for their to participate in the focus group.
Okay, because one thing I was thinking about, if you could do like a word cloud of actual text from people, from the students themselves, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
would-
I'm working on that right now.
Oh, okay, great, because
Yeah.
that would be fascinating to see that, like, in almost in real time, almost, right? If you were to do this over time, what is emerging, right? What are they thinking about? I'm curious from the literature. Did you take a look at the literature, current published literature? You keep mentioning audience, audience, audience. Know your audience. I love the fact that you were emphasizing that so much, right? Know your audience.
Yeah.
What is
Yeah, that's the key.
what is the literature saying, and is it agreeing what you're finding or different?
It's like pretty much the same. Like we talk about this all the time in science news, like who is the audience that we want to reach? So it's like through and through embedded in our brains. So I feel like that's also why audience is so important in my work.
Yeah.
And the literature is pretty much saying the same thing. Like you have to talk to audiences. Like teens do not care about a brand. They care about like people.
Yeah, yeah. And so Peter had a good question here. How were your students in your focus group selected or recruited?
So I recruited them via social media, who were connected with other groups that I talked to. And then also, as long as they meet the age requirement, 11 to 17, they had to sign a media consent, parental, and a minor consent.
And again, you mentioned the distributions. Are you able to share those again? Like how did you get
Of the ages?
boys, girls, just any demographic information?
So I had like Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Middle Eastern, multicultural. I had a lot of girls. I had boys. I had people that identified as non-binary as well.
Okay. Okay. It would be great to get like an actual graph of that when you do get it all together, actually showcasing that. And I think
do that too.
Caroline is already looking at us. We are all super visual people to showcase that data and to say, okay, which group is underrepresented, or how are you approaching it? So could selection bias their preferences for social media? That was a question from Peter.
Good question. Can you elaborate?
I think Peter may have, I don't know if she can hear us, Peter. There he is.
Sorry. There's little people running around. So what was the question? I missed it. I apologize.
Just elaborate on your question about
yeah, because you're picking, because your focus groups are coming from social media. That's how you found them. I'm just curious if you may have a selection bias for people who prefer social media. I also know that generation is basically living online. So I'm not saying that actually is the case. I'm just curious if that's something you've thought about.
No, I actually didn't think about that. But I also recruited like naturally through groups that I already talked to as well.
Yeah, one of the downsides of snowballing, right? So you're just, you're from one group that prefers another one, you get in them, but it's important to think about that, like the selection bias, the people that you have there potentially are telling you from their own preference, right? But knowing that's kind of a caveat, right? Maybe even mentioning it if you're gonna publish this. Is that the goal, to publish this somewhere, or what is the objective here long-term wise?
I definitely want to like publish it. I'm trying to like find out where would this live. So if y'all have any ideas, like let me know. I definitely want to do that.
One of the issues that I think a lot about is the gap between research and practice is, especially within civic science, is you might as well be a massive gorge there, okay? Journal of Science Communication has a call right now to address that specific issue. How do we bridge the gap between research and practice? What do you hope that this information, like where do you hope it lives, and what do you hope that it does?
I hope that, other people realize they have to pay attention to like Gen Z. And it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of money. and it takes people and resources. So if they consider that when they're trying to reach younger audiences in science, especially, like a lot of work.
Shouldn't leave people behind. That's the thing. We should be inclusive, right? I think that's the thing. Their voices matter. I think if anything, the key thing here is that their voices matter. We should find ways to engage them wherever they are, right? TikTok and Instagram.
Yeah.
Instagram, maybe not, but
Definitely.
You know, we are, so I'm a member of the National Association of Science Writers, and we are currently looking for proposals for next fall's meeting.
Okay.
And I could see a session around exactly what you're talking about with engaging younger audiences, because journalists need younger audiences if they're going to have a future.
Yeah.
And I think that whole professional community could really benefit from hearing about what you've just shared with us today about how to reach younger audiences, because it's different from what a lot of us are doing in the media right now. And maybe, you know, in the next couple days or week or two ahead, we could talk about if you'd be interested in submitting a proposal. I'd love to
definitely
have you as part of that.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
This is exciting. And
others here too. Like I probably should have told you about this, Faniel, where I'm on the programs committee and we're looking for ideas. Submissions are due, I believe, March 7th. So I know that that's coming up, but maybe I'll get a message out to the whole community.
Yes, I was going to say, just drop it in there and people might just,
Yeah.
AAAS is coming up too. I'm sure people will have a bunch of ideas from that to over. So any other questions?
That's a question, more like a thought about why, whether certain demographics would prefer social media as a way of getting news. I mean, definitely, and Martina, you brought up that you had students who pointed out the need for other languages. So yeah, you know, if NPR is not going to cut it for you, then you pretty much end up going onto social media.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually, that's intriguing. Even I think when I heard languages, I was actually even thinking other languages. Is that what you're referring to, Caroline?
Yes. I've heard a little bit of Spanish on NPR, but that's the only second
and someone
language I've heard.
sign language too. They wanted sign language. I was like, what? Yeah.
I saw that. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that on Instagram there's a STEM signs. I think there's an org that does this, but yeah, to your point that you need to think of diverse ways of communicating with people, right? And Jenny.
This just I was just flipping through the AAAS program today, and there is a session about broadening, diversity in communications, and it was all about Braille in science communication. And what do we do for folks who are visually challenged over social media? I mean, I don't know, but I think
Science News offers Braille as well, but you have to request it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. In terms of devices, Martina, I'm assuming these kids have mobile phones, right? Majority of it is through mobile phones and not any other way. Is that right? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, pretty much everybody has cell phone, smartphone, iPad.
Yeah. Were there any emerging, like something that was surprising? What did you discover that's something that was surprising for you?
That they really read newsletters and they want email notifications. So I was like, I don't like any of those.
Interesting. They would want the email listserv stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I'm like, not me. Yeah.
Interesting. And then in terms of topics, did climate change or
no, they didn't come up at all, really.
Biology, welfare.
Mainly like chemistry and biology.
Interesting. Okay, so no other major topics though, Han? I mean, chemistry is very broad, but
yeah.
I was gonna say, when they say biology, do they mean like human biology? Do they mean like what kind of biology are they?
They meant like human and like animal biology, basically.
Okay.
That's what they were pretty much saying.
Interesting.
No more newsletters. I agree. No more newsletters.
So Claire is saying no more newsletters for those who are listening.
Pretty.
There's something for everybody. Everybody has their own mode, right? Preference mode of engagement. So it's just a matter of reaching them, right? Providing that avenue so that they can be engaged over time.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the really challenging things right now, right? Is like people all used to get their news in like one or two ways, and that was where everybody got their news. And now there's so many options that it's really hard to figure out ways to engage the right people. And I'm curious a little bit about that. How do you get people to decide that your TikTok or your Twitter or your whatever is the right place? Like, and you talked a little bit about marketing, but is there something to getting the right influencer, the right person to be like, ooh, I like this, and tell people about it? Like, how does that work? And have you looked at that at all?
Let me see. They really say like likability, and they really like humor. And I was like, I can't be funny if I'm not funny. So I don't know what to do about that. But that's what they really said they wanted, was like humor, people that seem cool and interesting.
Did Neil deGrasse Tyson come up? I'm assuming you did.
No.
I'm
Yeah.
surprised.
They couldn't think of a living scientist, actually, which I was surprised.
They could not?
Yep. Could not.
Not surprised.
They said Einstein. I said a living one. They said, I don't know.
It's time to revive that actual living scientist hashtag again.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've seen the data on that one. Most of the people, in fact, if you just look at the US, it's hard. Elon Musk comes up.
Ah.
So yeah, we can have a conversation about that at some point as well.
Let's see about the content. Like really anything that's like cool and weird and creepy and disgusting and like what's that? That's what they want.
And length.
So it's like it's catching, but I'm curious. And this is, I'm showing my age and my bias here a little bit, but like, what are they learning from it? Do they talk at all about the fact that they've learned something? Like depending on what I look at on Facebook Reels, I get these stupid videos, right? And if I think something's funny and I watch it for too long, then I get a million of those, and I'm not learning anything from those. And I'm curious if they care whether they're learning anything from it. And if they don't, that's a way to connect with them. But what's the way for us to take it to the next step, right? Like that's a way to get them to grab them. But how do we pull them in further, right? To go beyond like, ooh, that was kind of disgusting. They just showed us how they dissected a human brain or whatever. And I liked it and shared it with all these people. But like, I actually didn't learn anything about the brain, or that I do brains. That's why I care. But like, how do we pull them in deeper, right? Like, how do we get them from the 10-second clip to like learning something?
Let's see. That's a good question. So let me think about it for a moment. I would say first you get the curiosity from video and then get them to the science news story. And then they will read and like keep reading and reading. That's pretty much like what they told me. So wheel them in, and then they will read.
Do they read? So my med students refuse to read. Like, no joke. They're like, you cannot assign us chapters in a textbook. I'm not going to do it. And like, if you want us to know that, you're going to have to make a video of it for us so that you summarize it so that I don't have to read it. But then also I want bullet points, because I actually don't want to watch the video of you telling me about it, because that takes too long. So like, this is that idea of like, there's so many ways to get information, but really what we want is as short as possible and give me the basic content. And as an educator in that field, it's like, if I distill it too much, you're not actually learning anything. And that's what I worry about a little bit with kind of, we pull them in, but how do we get them?
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, did they speak to the fact that they would actually read things that were interesting, or did they kind of skim it and move on?
If it was interesting, they would. Like some people said they would read stuff about hair and like skin and acne, anything that's relatable, basically, they'll read like a lot.
And so Martina, but one thing that would help, I think, as you do this presentation and onwards, right, giving us a little bit even more background on what do we know already, right, with respect to this space, and then how your questions or how you're adding to it, right, so that we can then see where those gaps are. And to Pete's question, I think you're thinking about that learning is the goal, but is it the only goal? Maybe they just want to have fun, right? That maybe that's it. They just want to have fun. Learning, maybe I'll learn something, right? I'm curious from your conversation. I don't know if learning ever came up. I'm doing this. Like, why are they doing? Why are they seeking this information? Why are they seeking it? This is a rhetorical question, but I'm curious if you can get it out of there. That'll be interesting. Maybe they just want to have fun, right? That's it. Learning is on the side. I don't know.
Yeah.
And I think
that's definitely something to think about.
And I think someone has looked at this, to some audience somewhere. I'm not saying your audience, but that's where you need to parse that out and figure out, okay, who has done what, and then connect those dots. Will be really cool.
I'm also thinking too, I mean, with Gen Z, I mean, like you guys were talking about before, it's you rope them in, you give them some interesting fact, you maybe help them do a little learning, but maybe it's something that we just kind of at that point are like hands off. If you want more, not the like, if you want more information, go to blah, 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 but like, hey, here's some things that we can do to make you feel empowered. This is the ways that we can communicate to make you feel empowered to seek out more knowledge on your own. And if you are interested in finding out more, we've curated a list of, or we have books for you, we have this, we have that, but it's kind of in the sense of, and I'm getting the sense from Gen Z is they want the power back in their own hands. They don't want to be spoon-fed things. They don't want chapter books to read every single day, because that's just not what they want / are doing anymore. They are going for entertainment, especially in online and on digital platforms. And so kind of curate our own messages, especially revolving around science, that hook them, reel them in, and then say, okay, you want more info, go to, but still in that manner.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pete.
This is all good. It's things we go back and forth with. And so I'm just going to play devil's advocate. I actually completely agree with what you're saying. The conversations that we have in like the lunchroom and things are, should we be doing what the students all want because they know what's best, or do we know how they ought to like be learning, right? Like, because we are the education experts. And I'm curious, like, I think in this audience, I think it's a balance of both, right? And that's why I'm curious. I think we need to hook them, right? But then I think there are educational practices that we know are effective for actual learning that we need to trick them into getting involved in. And that's the piece that I'm really curious about here. I think the work that you've done is really, really cool and really, really valuable for like, okay, how do we get them? How do we even get them to like want to do this or engage in this? And then I think the next piece for me is like, how do we keep reeling, right? Like we've got them on the hook. Now, how do we get them? How do we reel them in? And I think that's really interesting. So I appreciate and applaud your work.
Thank you so much.
All right. This is man, we can do something, of course. Any other? So Martina, question for you: like, how can we, besides today, or hopefully the questions we've asked you will have helped you as you continue this work. How else can our community help you?
I would say like anything with video production. Like if y'all know how to do that, that'll be very helpful. And sharing it with the students.
Because you're trying to make videos.
Yes.
Tell us more about
on
that.
TikTok for the students.
Okay.
About science topics. I'm not really sure yet, but I want to have like a series on TikTok.
Okay. So this will be an add-on to what you're doing. So kind of an experiment, or what
an experiment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Science News already has TikTok, but I want to like do it like different so it can reach like the teams that I basically talk to.
Okay. One of our residents, Stephanie Castillo, does a lot of the videos. So you can check out her profile. I'll put it in the chat also. But yeah, I think there's some members definitely that can provide insights and so forth. So this is great. So anything else before we close up here? And for those of you who don't know, the Civic Science Fellows, there have been 2 cohorts. Martina? You're in the
2
second
cohorts. I'm in the second cohort.
Mhm.
And pretty much we almost finished, a lot of us are finished like next month. I'm
Yeah.
finished in September.
And they all work on very different projects. And it's just impressive. I encourage you to go on their website and look at all the diverse array of things they're working on. Some research, Martina, right? Some are
There's some research, some practice,
Yeah.
some academic. It's all over really.
Yeah. And we had another Eunice came by last year to give a talk as well. She was looking at philanthropy in the civic
Yes.
science world and so forth. So it's really fascinating. So I'm so thankful that you stopped by to share your work, Martina.
Thank you.
Yes,
This was
definitely
so helpful.
keep us updated and send like your final product, your final research product to us, because we would love to share it around with some SAI folks who couldn't be here today too.
Yes, thank you all so much.
In fact, you can come back and we can grill you some more. Okay.
You can come back in September. In September.
Yes, seriously, that is an open invitation. Okay, we'd love to have you back, and we can take a look at that data. So everyone watching and those here, thank you so much. We'll be back here again next month for some other more interesting conversations. Have a good one.
Bye. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.